Hello, this is Paul from Pro Communications and Security Systems, and this video is about how we remote into our repeater systems to basically check on them to ensure that they're up to date with the firmware, to do fault analysis, to collect data on a repeater status, and where we have issues to also fault find. So we're going to connect to Sydney Southwest. It's the private hospital that we installed repeaters there sometime last year. So I'm using TeamViewer to get remote access to the local PC that we've installed with the repeaters. Now I actually have been working on this repeater network just recently. I'm actually doing a firmware upgrade. So from time to time the manufacturers actually upgrade firmware to the repeaters, and we find it's good practice to actually log into the system and then check the repeater status for the firmware and so on. So this one here is actually almost complete. I'm just going to pause the video for a moment. Okay, just back again. So that's almost complete. Now the reason why we do firmware updates is for many reasons. For example, if the network changes its network signaling for whatever reason, the repeaters will need a firmware upgrade, otherwise they'll stop operating. Other reasons could be firmware updates for resolving bugs. So sometimes there may be some issues about the repeater's operation, or they found a better way for the repeater to operate more efficiently. In the past, for example, when there was too much signal to the repeaters, that threshold may vary a little bit, so they might find a better way to deal with strong signals. Otherwise the repeaters will stop operating. Okay, so the firmware update is almost complete. So I'm just going to show some of the data that we record. So here is a spreadsheet which I'm going to populate. So to put today's date, and this was the previous data which I've copied and pasted. However, I'm going to be going through that and updating it. So here's the previous data from the 21st of September and the 27th of July. So some of the data that we look at, for example, is the signal that's being relayed, its relative signal strength, how much power it's transmitting into the system, so into the internal antennas. We look at the signal quality. This is the band, which is similar to the frequency. The mobile generation, so we're looking at 4G, or the next line, which is 3G WCDMA, the bandwidth, etc. Okay, and then I just put some comments. So for example here, monitoring high RSSI. So on this particular repeater, the RSSI was -40, so it's quite strong. Now, when we're looking at levels like that in the past, at -40 dBm, the repeater would drop out, but it looks like with the new firmware and that, it's been holding a lot better. Now, someone may ask, well, isn't it good to have high RSSI? It is. However, it gets to a certain threshold where the repeater will just stop relaying because the signal is too strong. So we have to be aware of that. But on the flip side, having a good strong signal means there's going to be less noise going back onto the network. So this is back to the Telstra network, because it's not going to have to amplify the signal as much. Okay, so let's have a look at this. So update complete. So we've just done a software upgrade to that repeater. So there's its serial number, 92281300865. So now let's have a look at the stats. So there's the band. Now here's the data that we look at. So incoming signals -64, RSRPs -96, there's the RSRQ, how much power is being transmitted into the system. So that signal will vary because of the way that transmission works. So it's a transmission protocol, but it'll peak at around 15-16 dBm, which is quite good. So let's have a look at the repeater data here that I'm going to update. Okay, so I'm just going to match the serial number of that repeater. So 865. There it is there. So signal being relayed was about -70. That really hasn't changed. We recorded -69. Okay, downlink power It's going to fluctuate between 8 to 14 dBm. We saw that go up to 15. So we can just change that. RSRQ, which is a signal quality. Let's have a look. Sitting at about -13. Now that's a good RSRQ. RSRQ is a quality measure, and the smaller the number gets, for example, if it goes from -17 to -20, then it's really bad. -13 is quite good. Excellent RSRQ values are around -6 to -10. Good RSRQs around -12 to -15, and then you get your lower values from about -15 to -20, which is not so good. All right, so let's have a look at this. It's -12 to -15. What have I got? It's sitting around -13, and that's going to fluctuate. It's fine. Band 28, it's correct. And it is a 20 meg channel. Okay, and I'm just going to put on there that we've updated firmware. Okay, I'm just going to flag that green to say that's been complete and everything's okay. Now we go on to the next repeater. Now, just to show, we click on software versions, and that, if you want to get into the detail, tells us what software versions is for every component in that repeater system or the repeater module. This part here shows us the band. Sometimes if we get, say, multiple serving donor cells, we can actually see if there's a dominance issue. So in this particular case, the only LTE signal it can see from one cell is one that's basically nearby, which is only about 200-300 meters away. So that's a good sign that we're not picking up multiple donor cells externally. All right, so I'm going to connect to the next repeater now. Go back into our USB server software, disconnect, connect to the next repeater. And we're going to run our program again. Okay, I'm just going to pause it for a moment just to... Oh, no need to pause. There we go. It's connecting quickly. Now these repeaters, for us to actually connect to them, they have to be online. And here we go. So it's asking us to do a software update. I'm just going to skip it for a moment. So just going to go straight into the data. So this one's CDMA. And again, there's your 3G signal, incoming RSSI signal, RSCP, which is receive channel signal power. Receive signal channel power. So basically it's the level that's coming in from the pilot channel, whereas that's just a combination of the whole signals being broadcasted from the donor cell. ECIO is quite good. So we normally see values at around -10 to -15. However, this one's showing -8, so it's quite good. Transmit power into the network is okay, so 11 dBm, and that'll fluctuate up to 15. This is an interesting one too, uplink TX power. So the more power we have coming in from the external network means that we only need less power to transmit into the network. So it's quite good having good levels of signal coming in. And when we look at the uplink safe mode, it actually tells you how much gain we have that the system can work up to. So what that's telling us is that the uplink safe mode is it's not going to exceed that, otherwise it can go into self-isolation. So that's a protection measure. And downlink echo gain is basically to reduce any kind of feedback It's like a microphone. So that's your echo gain. Device state. Now this is interesting because it tells us the temperature of the repeater. So it's sitting at 30 degrees Celsius. Remote shutdown state. That's a state that if there's a problem in a network, say for example Telstra detect it here in Australia, they can actually shut the repeater down. So that's another good feature of the repeater systems. Now here we're looking at the cell. So PSC is basically the channel identifier. So we're picking up, there's actually 2 carriers for WCDMA. Now we're actually picking up 3. So 887.2, so there's 2 of those. So what that's telling me is from time to time you'll see that'll disappear, is that there is also another cell that I can see. However, we've done tests and we found that it's quite normal. And it is actually quite normal for CDMA as opposed to 4G. However, we're using directional antennas, so that's on a threshold, that other donor cell. And in metropolitan areas where Sydney Southwest is, you have a lot of surrounding network cells, so you do tend to get this situation. But if you don't and you just get the one cell, it's even better, because that means you've got less issues of surrounding networks causing a problem. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do a software update now for this repeater. So we go to settings. Okay, software version. Okay, update your system. Okay, so we're doing a remote software upgrade to the repeaters. I'm just going to pause for now, just to speed this up for the video purpose. Now we're about halfway through the software upgrade, but just going to show you, just from the data that we saw before. So I've just started populating the second repeater data. Now interestingly, we saw the ECIO was about -8. Now the previous time we looked at that was -12 to -15. So I'm going to update that, and we're looking at about -8 RSRQ. So it's good to put this data in, because we can see, for example, I mean I've still got to finish updating that to see what's fluctuating around, but we can see that during this time the ECIO was much better compared to the previous time, which was around -12 to -15. Now we've got Go Optus and Go Vodafone, but they haven't been installed yet, so we've got to be installed. So the next task, when we visit the hospital again, we're going to be upgrading the repeaters and adding the Optus and Vodafone modules. There's a typo there. Okay. Just go back to the software upgrade, so it's almost complete. Almost done. So as you can see, we're up to version 18.04. So there's been quite a few revisions of the firmware. There's been many changes, just fixing up bugs, changes in the network to deal with the Australian networks. So for example, Optus at one stage changed their network cell ID data, which meant that a lot of repeaters stopped operating. So we had to roll out a firmware upgrade to those repeaters to keep them up and functional. There we are. It's almost done. Now, another benefit, once we actually put these repeaters online, I'm just going to demonstrate the Wave portal. Okay, so this is the Cel-Fi Wave portal, and there's the URL. So So I'm just going to sign in. Okay. Okay, so here's our Cel-Fi Wave dashboard. Now the Wave dashboard supports Cel-Fi Pro repeaters, Prime, Duo, Quattro, Go and others that Cel-Fi make. Now I'm just going to slide the screen across. So here's our repeater that we were connecting to before. So I'm just going to copy the serial number. So it's been online for a few hours today. And I'm just going to do a search. So we click on sites. Now this is a little bit slow, but it's adequate, and I believe it's hosted out of the US or Canada. Okay, so there's a list of all the repeaters that is registered to my dashboard for management. So I'm just going to put the serial number of that repeater in. There we go. So the repeater at Sydney Southwest is in Liverpool, New South Wales. Here we are. Now, no data available for notifications. That's because we haven't had it online and set up notifications, but at the moment it is online. Alright, so here's the data. Now you have to click on it a few times to actually just start populating. There we go. So we've got minus 71 dBm. It's got a gain of 74. Here's the gain range. So it looks like from 40 to 110 as in gain. So if you've got really strong signals, then the minimum gain would be about 40. If you've got really low signals, then it can ramp up. But I think these repeaters normally work to about 100 dB safe gain. Now, it tells us it's W wideband CDMA. There's your bandwidth, 10 megs, downlink frequency. So that's what's receiving externally, and then it's uplinking on 839. There's your signal level input. There's the quality, which is received signal channel power, which is the pilot channel. ECIO, which is -7, which is quite good. There's your uplink safe mode. That's the cell ID. So we can, if we see the cell ID changing, that could mean that there's an issue of cell dominance. Download TX power, so that's the transmitter power that's been injected into the building. There's your downlink system gain again, 73 dB, and uplink gain. Now, you can see here it's 0 dB. Now that is normal. That will actually increase when it's receiving a mobile phone signal. Okay, and just looking at this, so we can see here it's picking up two cell IDs. Now it's 882 and 887, so that's from the one donor cell. From time to time I saw a third one come up, and that's because there's another cell in the area that it's picking up. So there's a slight dominance issue. There it is, 887. Okay, so we've got 2882.4 and 887. Okay, on to the next thing. So here's your software versions. That is the latest software version, 8.04. So there's different firmware for the different components inside the repeater module, which we won't get into. Okay, so this is a go. There's the model details, as its serial. And what I can also do here is, if we look at notifications, if we wanted to keep this repeater online, then we could actually set up notifications. So it's good for fault finding. If there's any issues, for example, if the repeater is intermittently dropping out, it could be caused by heat, it could be signal variation, faulty antennas or whatever, then we can set up notifications. So if this repeater drops out, it can send us a notification. Now, at the moment, this is quite slow. But I'm not going to jump into it at the moment. Well, I think we'll just change direction. Yeah, okay. So let's look at software. Okay, so because it's online, if it was a Cel-Fi Quattro, could actually do an update online with the Quattros because they're a more online type of repeater. They're actually designed to be online. Whereas if the Cel-Fi goes, we've actually designed a solution to get it online. However, we can still do things like lock the system down. So see here where it says access. So then we would search for that repeater, put the serial number in, there it is. And then we could lock down access to that. Now, other things that we can look at quickly, just to show you some of the data that we collect. Okay, there it is again. Right, so when I click on the signal here, on the repeated, right, and I'll click it on again, it should populate all those data fields. Now see this line here, that's basically the data that's been logged. Now the bandwidth's probably not going to change, but things like the signal strength, RSCP, may change, and the ECIO, so see it's gone to -10. I'm going to look at the signal, so I'm just clicking on that. And you can see here it's logged. So we had the repeater online and we switched it off yesterday, and then today we switched it back on, and you can see the fluctuation in the signal levels, which is quite interesting. So we've got -65 to -57 dBm. So it's about 9 dBm the fluctuation. And the previous day we had that's -68 to -59, which is 9 dBm fluctuation. So that's got to do with the mobile network on how the signal is actually transmitted. So cell networks actually breathe like a heartbeat in a sense. So they can actually increase their power and decrease their power. So what the repeater is actually doing is measuring that incoming signal, because if it gets too high, then the repeater is going to shut down. If it gets too low, below its threshold, then it's going to shut down and stop repeating the signal. So these sort of things is important. Especially when we're doing repeater installs and maintenance, we want to make sure that we set up the repeater in its happy medium. So not too much of a signal and not too weak of a signal. So we know that there's about, plus or 5. So when we're setting this up, if we're setting up a repeater and we're getting say -40 dBm, then there's chances that it's probably going to go into overload and it's going to shut down because the signal's too strong. So these are important little things to know about. Okay, and the last thing I'm going to show you is the map. Okay, I'm going to zoom out and go to Australia. So these are all the repeaters that I'm looking after. So we'll have a look in Sydney. Okay, so for example, there's one repeater. Now, see if I can find Liverpool. Zoom out a bit. There we are. There's Liverpool. So I've got 2 repeaters there. 2968 and 2517. That gives you an idea where the repeaters are being registered and where their location is. So, Cel-Fi Wave Portal, the benefit is if the client wanted access, we may be able to arrange access for them, but generally we use a dashboard for more logging repeater data, just to manage issues. If we need to lock down the repeaters, then we can use this dashboard to lock down the repeaters. And as the new Cel-Fi Quattro repeaters are coming on board, then those repeaters purely rely on this portal for management. Okay, so that's pretty much in a nutshell how our remote management solution works. And if you have any further questions, please feel free to give me a call or send me an email, and happy to discuss options with you. Thank you.